They destroyed her, piece by piece, smile by smile, lie by lie. At 30 years old, Maya Richardson lost everything: her marriage, her unborn child, her home, her name. Her in-laws didn't just betray her, they erased her. Her husband, the man who promised to protect her, chose silence over courage, comfort over truth. They blamed her for the miscarriage that still haunted her dreams. They whispered behind closed doors, then shouted it in front of guests. Unlucky, cursed, defective. One forged signature stripped her of the house she helped pay for. Another document wiped her name from bank accounts she never knew were emptied. And when she finally broke, when the tears wouldn't stop and the walls closed in, they threw her out. No money, no support, just a suitcase, medical records no one believed, and a dignity they thought they'd buried. Society labeled her difficult, overdramatic, replaceable. For 12 months, Maya Richardson stayed silent. But silence isn't weakness. Silence is strategy. While they celebrated her absence, she was learning, watching, gathering. The brother-in-law's financial fraud, the mother-in-law's fabricated property claims, the husband's secret life, the one funded by her inheritance. Maya didn't come back with tears. She came back with evidence. One complaint, one legal filing, one audit. That's all it took. Suddenly, their locked doors weren't keeping her out, they were keeping investigators in. The woman they mocked, the unlucky daughter-in-law they thought they'd broken, she became the reason their empire crumbled. Her ex-husband begged, his family blamed fate, karma, bad timing. But Maya knew better. Karma wasn't fate. Karma was her. This is the story of a woman who didn't scream. She collected receipts. And when she finally spoke, the whole world listened. What would you do if everything was taken from you? Would you disappear, or would you come back stronger? Let's find out what Maya did. Rewind to 3 years earlier. Maya Richardson wasn't always this woman. She wasn't always sharp edges and calculated moves. Once, she was hopeful, soft, trusting. She married Daniel Richardson at 27. A good family, everyone said. Established, respectable, traditional. Daniel seemed kind. Quiet, maybe, but kind. His mother, Margaret Richardson, smiled sweetly during the engagement. "You're perfect for our Daniel," she cooed. "Like a daughter to me already." His brother, Evan Richardson, shook her hand firmly. "Welcome to the family, Maya. We take care of our own." We take care of our own. Those words felt warm then. Later, they'd feel like a threat. The first 6 months of marriage were fine, normal even. Daniel worked long hours at the family's real estate business. Margaret visited often, too often, maybe, but Maya told herself it was love, family closeness. She ignored the comments. "You're cooking that for dinner? You don't really need a career now, do you? Daniel provides. When are you giving us a grandchild? You're not getting younger." Maya laughed them off, adjusted, tried harder. Then she got pregnant. For a brief, beautiful moment, everything felt right. Daniel smiled more. Margaret stopped criticizing. Evan joked about becoming the cool uncle. Maya let herself believe she'd finally earned her place. But at 11 weeks, during a routine checkup, the heartbeat was gone. The doctor said these things happen, common, tragic, but common. Maya was devastated, shattered. Daniel held her once, then returned to work. Margaret didn't visit. And when Maya finally emerged from her grief enough to attend a family dinner, 3 weeks later, eyes still red, body still aching, Margaret said it, quietly, calmly, like she was commenting on the weather. "Maybe it's a sign, dear. Some women just aren't meant to carry." Maya's fork froze midair. "What?" Margaret smiled. "I'm just saying, stress, lifestyle choices, your age, these things matter." Evan nodded, chewing. She's got a point. You've been working a lot. Maybe your body—" "My body?" Maya's voice cracked. Daniel said nothing. He stared at his plate. That night, Maya cried alone in the guest room. Daniel didn't come, and that's when the shift began. Over the next 6 months, things got worse. Margaret started making decisions for Maya, rearranging furniture, choosing meals, showing up unannounced with helpful suggestions. Evan's wife, Courtney, spread rumors at family gatherings. "I heard she was on antidepressants. You know, those affect fertility, right?" Daniel stopped defending her, stopped touching her, stopped seeing her. Maya tried therapy, communication, date nights. Nothing worked, because the truth was already decided. She was the problem. When Margaret suggested Maya sign over her inheritance, "Just for family investment purposes, dear, to grow our wealth together," Daniel encouraged it. "It's smart, Maya. We're family." So she signed. When Evan needed her name on a business loan, "Just a formality, you won't be liable," Daniel nodded along. So she signed. When the house was refinanced and her name was quietly removed from the deed, legal adjustments, nothing to worry about, Maya didn't even know until months later. By the time she realized what was happening, it was too late. They didn't steal from her loudly. They did it with paperwork, smiles, family. And when Maya finally confronted Daniel, when she stood in their bedroom with bank statements and documents and tears streaming down her face, he looked at her like she was hysterical. "You're being paranoid, Maya. You're still not over the miscarriage. Maybe you need help." That word, help. Translation, "You're broken. You're the problem. You're crazy." 2 weeks later, they told her to leave. How far would you go to survive a family that wants you erased? The day they threw her out, it was raining. Not dramatically, not cinematically, just cold, steady rain that soaked through her jacket as she stood on the porch with 2 suitcases. Daniel handed her an envelope. "Divorce papers. Sign them. We'll make it quick." Maya stared at him. This man she'd loved, trusted, built a life with. "You're really doing this?" "You're not well, Maya. You haven't been since—" He stopped, sighed. "This is better for everyone." "Better for everyone? Or better for your mother?" His jaw tightened. "Don't." She planned this, didn't she? All of it. The signatures, the accounts, the— Enough. His voice was cold. Final. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Margaret appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. "Daniel, don't engage. Let her go." Maya turned to her. "You stole from me." Margaret smiled. Sweet, poisonous. "Stole, darling? You gave it to us. You signed everything willingly. No one forced you." "You lied." "Prove it." 2 words. Calm, confident. "Prove it." Because they knew she couldn't. Not then, not without resources, lawyers, time. Evan stepped out, car keys jingling. "Maya, let's not make a scene. The neighbors are watching." And they were. Curtains twitching, phones probably recording. Maya looked around. At the house she'd helped renovate, the garden she'd planted, the mailbox with her name still on it, for now. She looked at Daniel one last time. "You'll regret this." He didn't respond, just turned and walked inside. The door closed, the locks clicked, and Maya stood there, in the rain, alone, with nothing but 2 suitcases and a breaking heart. She spent the first night in a cheap motel, the kind with flickering lights, stained carpet, and walls thin enough to hear every argument, every life falling apart in real time. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the divorce papers. They'd already filled them out, already decided her fate. Irreconcilable differences, no fault, clean split. Clean for them, maybe. For Maya, this was devastation. She'd lost her child, her home, her identity. Even her friends had distanced themselves. Margaret had made sure of that. Whisper campaigns. "She's unstable, going through something. Best to give her space." isolation disguised as concern. Maya had no family of her own. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 22. No siblings, no cousins she was close to. She was truly, completely alone. That first week, she barely ate. She applied for jobs. Her old marketing career felt like a lifetime ago, but gaps in her resume raised questions. References were cold. Margaret had poisoned even that well. By week 2, Maya's savings, what little she had left, were running out. She moved to a women's shelter, shared a room with 3 other women, each with their own story of betrayal, survival, barely holding on. One night, a woman named Carla asked her, "What are you gonna do?" Maya didn't know. "I mean, are you going to roll over or are you going to fight?" Fight? With what? No money, no evidence, no support. But Carla leaned in, eyes sharp. "Honey, the system screws women like us every day, but you know what it hates? Paper trails, lies that don't add up, rich people who think they're untouchable." She slid a battered business card across the table. Janelle Torres, legal aid attorney, specializing in financial abuse and fraud. She's a pit bull. She works pro bono for cases like yours, if you've got the guts to see it through. Maya stared at the card. For the first time in months, something flickered inside her. Not hope, not yet, but something sharper. Anger. Janelle Torres didn't look like a pit bull. She looked like someone's cool aunt. Mid-40s, bright red reading glasses, a coffee-stained blazer, and a smile that said, "I've seen worse, and I've won." Her office was cluttered, case files stacked like Jenga towers, whiteboards covered in timelines and arrows, sticky notes everywhere. Maya sat across from her, hands shaking as she unloaded everything. The miscarriage, the isolation, the signatures, the house, the money. Janelle listened without interrupting, took notes, nodded occasionally. When Maya finished, Janelle leaned back and said, "They're sloppy." Maya blinked. "What?" "Rich people always are. They think money makes them invisible, but sloppy is good. Sloppy leaves trails." She pulled out a legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we request financial records, bank statements, property deeds, loan documents, everything you signed, we're getting copies. They'll never give them to me." "They don't have to. Court orders will," Janelle grinned. "Second, we file for an emergency hearing to freeze joint assets. If they've been moving money, we stop it now." Maya's chest tightened. "Can we actually do that?" "Honey, financial abuse is still abuse. Fraud is fraud. And if your signatures were obtained under duress or deception, and I strongly suspect they were, we've got a case." For the first time in months, Maya felt something other than despair. She felt dangerous. "What do I need to do?" Janelle's smile widened. "Everything you remember. Every document, every conversation, every witness. Write it down. Dates, times, names. We're building a timeline. And then we make them very uncomfortable." Over the next 3 weeks, Maya worked like she'd never worked before. She rebuilt her life on paper. Every transaction, every signature, every lie. She remembered Margaret insisting she signed the inheritance transfer before the lawyer's office closed. The rushed, pressured tone. The way Daniel stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, supportive or controlling. She remembered Evan's loan documents, the ones he said were just a formality, how he'd laughed, made jokes, distracted her while she signed. She remembered the refinance meeting she wasn't invited to, the one Daniel said was just boring paperwork. All of it, documented. Janelle filed a motion for financial disclosure. The Richardsons' lawyer responded with outrage. "This is a vindictive ex-wife trying to exploit the system." But the judge disagreed. If there's nothing to hide, disclosure shouldn't be a problem. And just like that, the walls started closing in. The first crack appeared when the bank records arrived. Janelle spread them across her desk, highlighter in hand. "Look at this," she pointed. 3 days after you signed over your inheritance, a wire transfer, $150,000, straight to an account under Evan Richardson's name. Maya's stomach dropped. That's my money. Yep, and here, Janelle flipped pages. Another transfer, $80,000 to a shell company. Guess who's listed as the owner? Margaret? Bingo, Janelle leaned back. They didn't just take your money, Maya. They laundered it. Thought they were smart. But this, she tapped the documents, this is evidence. Maya's pulse quickened. What happens now? Now we file a formal fraud complaint with the state attorney's office. We're not just talking civil court anymore, Maya. This is criminal. The words hung in the air. Criminal. Margaret, Evan, Daniel, they could face charges, real consequences. Janelle met her eyes. Are you ready for this? Because once we pull this trigger, there's no going back. They will fight. They will smear you. They will try to destroy you all over again. Maya thought about the rain, the suitcases, the locked door. She thought about the miscarriage they blamed her for, the isolation, the erasure. She looked at Janelle. Let them try. What would you risk to take back your life? The complaint was filed on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, the Richardsons knew. Daniel called 17 times. Maya didn't answer. He left voicemails, angry at first. You're making a huge mistake. Then desperate. Maya, please, we can talk about this. Margaret sent a text. This is beneath you. Think about what you're doing. Evan's wife, Courtney, posted on social media, vague but pointed. Some people can't handle being held accountable for their own failures, so they blame everyone else. Sad. But Maya didn't flinch, because Janelle had taught her something crucial. Silence is power. Don't respond, Janelle had said. Let them panic. Let them make mistakes. And they did. The state attorney's office opened an investigation. A forensic accountant was assigned, someone named Roger Kim, who had a reputation for finding money people thought they'd hidden. He started pulling records, not just bank accounts, everything. LLCs, property transfers, tax filings. And the more he dug, the worse it looked. The shell company Margaret had created, it had been used for years, not just Maya's money. There were other transactions, other names. Evan's business loan that Maya co-signed, it was never a loan. It was a fake document used to inflate his assets for a real estate deal. Fraud on multiple levels. And Daniel, his long hours at work, turns out he'd been skimming from the family business, small amounts, consistent, over 2 years. Roger Kim sent a preliminary report to Janelle. She called Maya immediately. Sit down. What is it? They're not just guilty. They're stupid, Janelle laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. Maya, they've been running schemes for years. Yours wasn't even the first. You were just the easiest target. Maya's hands went cold. What do you mean? There's another woman, Daniel's ex-girlfriend, before you. She signed documents too, lost money, never pursued it because Margaret scared her off. But now, Janelle's voice turned fierce. Now she's willing to talk. A witness, corroboration, patterns. This wasn't just about Maya anymore. This was systemic. The state attorney wants to meet with you, Janelle said. They're considering a full criminal investigation. RICO charges, maybe. This family's been running a fraud operation. Maya's heart pounded. What does that mean for them? Prison time, asset seizure, public records, their entire empire gone. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. This was real. This was happening. And for me, she whispered, for you, Janelle's voice softened, you get your life back. The meeting with the state attorney happened in a gray, fluorescent-lit conference room. Maya sat across from Assistant District Attorney Lena Park, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Ms. Richardson, we've reviewed the evidence your attorney provided. It's compelling, but I need to be clear with you. If we move forward, this will be public. Your name, your story, everything. The defense will try to tear you apart. Maya nodded. She'd expected this. They'll call you bitter, vindictive, a scorned ex-wife making things up. I know. They'll dig into your mental health history, the miscarriage, the depression. They'll twist it. I know. Lena studied her. And you're still willing to testify? Maya met her gaze steady. They took everything from me. They counted on me staying quiet, staying broken. She leaned forward. I'm not broken, and I'm not quiet. Lena smiled, small but approving. Good, because we're going to need that fire. She slid a document across the table. This is a subpoena for Daniel, Margaret, and Evan Richardson. Financial records, depositions, the works. Once we serve this, it's war. Maya picked up a pen. Then let's go to war. She signed. And just like that, the reckoning began. Would you testify even if it meant reliving your worst trauma? Margaret was at a charity luncheon when a process server approached her table. In front of her friends, her social circle, the people she'd spent decades impressing. Margaret Richardson? She smiled, confused. Yes? The server handed her the documents. You've been served. The table went silent. Margaret's face turned white, then red. She tried to laugh it off. This is a mistake, some ridiculous... But her hands were shaking as she read. Formal investigation, financial fraud, asset seizure, criminal charges pending. Her friend Linda leaned over. Margaret, what is that? Margaret stood abruptly, clutching her purse. I have to go. She left without paying her portion of the bill. By that evening, it was the talk of the country club. Evan was served at his office, in front of his business partners. The same partners he'd been pitching a new development deal to, the ones who'd just agreed to invest $2 million. When the server walked in and announced his name, Evan tried to play it cool. Yeah, that's me. What's this about? The server didn't answer, just handed him the papers and left. Evan scanned the subpoena, his face drained of color. His partner, Greg, frowned. Evan, what's going on? It's nothing, a misunderstanding. It says criminal investigation. Evan forced a laugh. My ex-sister-in-law is insane. She's making up lies because the divorce didn't go her way. But Greg didn't look convinced. By Monday, the investment deal was on hold pending further review. By Tuesday, it was dead. Daniel was served at home, alone. No audience, just him and the process server at the door. He read the subpoena in silence. Then he called Maya. She answered on the third ring. She'd been expecting this. Maya? His voice was tight, strained. What the hell are you doing? Getting my life back. You're destroying people, my family. Your family destroyed me, Daniel. That's not... He stopped, breathed. Look, I know things got bad. I know my mom, she can be intense. But this is too far. Maya's voice was calm. Ice cold. You let them steal from me. You watched them erase me. You stood there and did nothing. I was trying to keep the peace. You were a coward. Silence. Then, quieter. Maya, please, drop this. I'll pay you back. We can settle. You don't have to drag us all through court. I'm not dragging you anywhere, Daniel. You did this to yourselves. They'll fight you. My mom has lawyers, connections. Good. Let them fight. I have the truth. He laughed bitterly. The truth? You think that matters? You think anyone's going to believe you over my mother? Maya smiled, even though he couldn't see it. They already do. She hung up. Daniel stared at his phone, chest tight. For the first time, he felt it. Fear. Margaret called an emergency family meeting that night. In the Margaret Richardson family home, the one Maya used to live in, Margaret, Evan, and Daniel sat in the dining room. Margaret was pacing. This is absurd. She has no case, no evidence. This is a desperate woman lashing out. Evan rubbed his face. Mom, they have bank records, transfers. They know about the LLC. So what? We have explanations, legal reasons. For fraud? For forging documents? Daniel snapped at her. We didn't forge anything. She signed willingly. Under false pretenses. You lied to her, Mom. You manipulated her. And now we're all going down for it. Don't you dare blame me for this. I was protecting this family, protecting you. By stealing from my wife? Ex-wife, and she was bleeding us dry, weak, useless. She couldn't even carry a child. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. Stop. The room froze. Margaret stared at him stunned. She lost our baby, Mom, our baby, and instead of supporting her, you tortured her. You made her feel like it was her fault, like she was broken. His voice cracked. And I let you. Evan shifted uncomfortably. Daniel, man, we need to focus. We need a strategy. Daniel looked at him. The strategy is to tell the truth. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Absolutely not. We're guilty, Mom, all of us, and if we fight this, it's only going to get worse. I will not be humiliated by that girl. Then you'll be humiliated by a jury. Daniel hired his own lawyer, not the family lawyer. Not Margaret's recommendation, his own. A woman named Patricia Cole, known for negotiating plea deals and minimizing damage. When Margaret found out, she was livid. You're abandoning us? I'm protecting myself. This is betrayal, Daniel. Family doesn't turn on family. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. You don't get to talk about family, not after what you did. Patricia Cole was blunt. You're complicit, but you're not the mastermind. That works in your favor. Daniel sat in her office, head in his hands. What do I do? You cooperate, fully. You testify against your mother and brother if necessary. They're my family, and they're criminals. Patricia leaned forward. Daniel, the state has evidence, financial records, witness testimony, a clear pattern of fraud. Your mother's going down, your brother's going down. The only question is whether you go down with them. He felt sick. If I testify, you'll likely avoid prison, community service, restitution, probation. You'll lose the business, the assets, your reputation, but you'll have your freedom. Freedom. The word felt hollow. What about Maya? Patricia raised an eyebrow. What about her? Does she want me to go to prison? Patricia's expression softened, just slightly. I don't think Maya cares what happens to you, Daniel. I think she just wants justice. That hurt more than he expected. Evan, on the other hand, doubled down. He hired an aggressive defense attorney, the kind who attacked victims, discredited evidence, played dirty. His strategy? Blame Maya. She's a liar, a manipulator. She signed those documents willingly and now regrets it. This is a shakedown, plain and simple. His lawyer filed motions to dismiss, motions to suppress evidence, motions to delay. But the forensic accountant, Roger Kim, was unshakable. Every transfer, every fake document, every shell company, he had receipts for everything. Evan's lawyer tried to poke holes. How do you know these transfers were unauthorized? Roger adjusted his glasses. Because the account they came from required dual authorization. Mrs. Richardson's signature was required for any transfer over $10,000. Her signature appears on the initial deposit slip, but not on any of the withdrawals. Maybe she gave verbal authorization. There's no record of that, and given that she's since filed a formal complaint alleging fraud, I'd say verbal authorization is unlikely. The lawyer tried a different angle. Isn't it possible she simply forgot? Roger smiled, thin, professional. Forgot that $150,000 disappeared from her account? That seems implausible. Evan's lawyer had no response. The judge looked unimpressed. Motion to suppress is denied. Will proceed to deposition.
Evan walked out of the courtroom, jaw tight. His wife, Courtney, grabbed his arm. "This is bad, Evan. It's fine. They have nothing. They have everything." Her voice cracked. "Our accounts are frozen. The house might be seized. Our kids' college fund. I'll fix it." "How?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Margaret, meanwhile, remained defiant. She sat in her lawyer's office, back straight, chin high. "I did nothing wrong. That girl signed every document of her own free will." Her lawyer, an older man named Charles Winters, sighed. "Margaret, the optics are bad, very bad. You're a wealthy woman who manipulated a younger, vulnerable daughter-in-law. Juries hate that. Then we don't let it go to a jury. That would require a settlement, which means admitting fault. Absolutely not. Then we go to trial and we risk losing everything." Margaret's eyes flashed. "I won't be beaten by her, that weak, pathetic girl who couldn't even—" "Careful." Charles's voice was sharp. "That attitude is exactly what will bury you in court." She pressed her lips together. "I built this family. I protected it. I will not apologize for that." Charles closed his file. "Then I hope you're prepared for prison." Who do you think deserves to suffer the most?
It happened late one night. Maya was in her small apartment, still modest, still rebuilding, but hers, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Maya." "Daniel." Her chest tightened. "How did you get this number?" "I need to talk to you, please, just 5 minutes." She should have hung up, should have blocked him, but something in his voice stopped her. "What do you want, Daniel?" A long pause. Then, "I'm sorry." She laughed bitterly. "Now? After everything?" I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I need you to hear it." His voice cracked. "I failed you. I was weak. I let my mother control everything, and I convinced myself it was easier to go along than to fight. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really, I was just a coward." Maya closed her eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know. You deserved better, and I didn't give it to you." Silence. Then, "I'm testifying, Maya, against my mother, my brother. I'm cooperating with the state." Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because it's the truth, and because," he exhaled shakily, "because you were right. I was a coward, but maybe I don't have to stay one." Maya didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to yell, to scream at him for the year of hell she'd endured, but another part, smaller, quieter, recognized the weight in his voice. "This doesn't fix anything, Daniel." "I know. It doesn't undo what happened." "I know. And I'm never forgiving you." A pause, then softly, "I know." She hung up. And for the first time since everything fell apart, Maya cried. Not out of sadness, not out of pain, but out of something like release. Daniel's testimony was scheduled 2 weeks later. He sat in a deposition room, camera recording, his lawyer beside him. Across the table, ADA Lena Park and her team. "Mr. Richardson, let's start with the inheritance transfer, the $150,000 your ex-wife signed over. Walk me through how that happened." Daniel swallowed. "My mother told me Maya needed to consolidate her assets for tax purposes, that it was a smart financial move. She said she'd already talked to Maya about it." "Had she?" "No. I found out later she hadn't. She pressured Maya to sign by making it seem urgent, like we'd lose money if she didn't act fast." "And you were aware of this pressure?" He hesitated. Then, "Yes." "Did you intervene?" "No." "Why not?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Because I didn't want to fight with my mother." Lena made a note. "And the house refinance, the one where Maya's name was removed from the deed. What do you know about that?" "My mother arranged it. She told me it was a legal formality, that Maya's name was causing complications with the lender. I didn't question it." "Did Maya agree to this?" "She wasn't told." Lena looked up. "She wasn't told her name was being removed from the house she co-owned?" "No." "And you allowed this?" Daniel's hands trembled. "Yes." "Mr. Richardson,
In your own words, did your mother and brother defraud your ex-wife? He closed his eyes, then opened them. Yes. The room was silent. And did you help them? Yes. His lawyer squeezed his arm gently, a reminder that this was the right move, the only move, but it didn't make it easier. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. This testimony will be submitted to the grand jury. Daniel nodded. He'd just buried his family, and he knew there was no going back. When Maya heard about the testimony, Janelle called her immediately. He gave them everything: names, dates, documents, motivations. He corroborated every single thing we've been saying. Maya sat down slowly. So it's real. It's actually happening. Grand jury meets next week. After Daniel's testimony, I'd bet my license they're indicting. Maya felt lightheaded. And Margaret and Evan? Both. Criminal fraud, conspiracy, financial elder abuse. Well, spousal abuse in your case, but same charges. And Daniel? Plea deal. Probation, restitution, community service. He won't serve time. Maya didn't know how to feel about that. Angry? Relieved? Vindicated? All of it. None of it. What happens now? She asked. Janelle's voice turned fierce. Now we watch them fall. Is forgiveness ever possible or even necessary?
The grand jury returned indictments in 6 days. Margaret Richardson, 5 counts of fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy, 1 count of financial exploitation. Evan Richardson, 4 counts of fraud, 3 counts of conspiracy, 1 count of forgery. When the news broke, it was everywhere. Local outlets picked it up first. Wealthy family accused of elaborate fraud scheme. Then regional. Socialite Margaret Richardson faces criminal charges. Then national. How one woman's silence turned into a reckoning. Maya didn't do interviews, didn't release statements. She let the facts speak for themselves. But the media found her anyway. Her photo, pulled from old social media before she deleted everything, circulated with headlines like "Victim turned victor" and "The daughter-in-law who fought back." People online were split. Some praised her. This is what courage looks like. She's a hero. Others doubted her. Why did she wait so long? She's just after money. Maya ignored all of it, because the only opinions that mattered now were the jury's. Margaret's arrest happened at 6 a.m. Officers arrived at her home with a warrant. She answered the door in a silk robe, face cold. "This is unnecessary. I'll turn myself in." "Ma'am, you're under arrest. Please turn around." They cuffed her. In front of her neighbors. In front of the cameras a news crew had somehow gotten wind of. Margaret's lawyer was already on the phone, arranging bail. She was released 6 hours later, but the damage was done. Her mugshot was online within minutes. Margaret Richardson, the woman who'd ruled country clubs and charity boards, reduced to a booking photo. The humiliation was exquisite. Evan's arrest was messier. He tried to run, not far, just to a friend's lake house 2 hours away, but someone tipped off the authorities. When officers arrived, Evan was packing a bag. "Going somewhere, Mr. Richardson?" I was just... "Save it. You're under arrest." Evan's wife watched from the porch, arms wrapped around herself. "Did you know?" An officer asked her. She looked at Evan. "I suspected." Evan's face crumpled. Even his wife didn't believe him. The arraignment was a media circus. Cameras lined the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions. "Margaret, do you regret what you did? Evan, what do you have to say to your victims? Daniel, are you testifying against your family?" They didn't answer, just walked inside, heads down, lawyers flanking them. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Maya sat in the back, Janelle beside her. She hadn't planned on coming, didn't need to, but Janelle insisted. "You've earned the right to see this." So she sat, and she watched. Margaret stood before the judge, chin high, defiant even in handcuffs. "How do you plead?" "Not guilty." Evan, beside her, echoed, "Not guilty." The judge set bail at $500,000 each. Anklets, travel restrictions, passport surrender. Margaret's lawyer paid immediately. Evan's took longer. Courtney had to liquidate assets. When they walked out, free on bail but shackled in every other way, Margaret finally looked small.
That night, Maya stood on her apartment balcony staring at the city lights. Janelle had texted her, "You did it, they're facing justice." But Maya didn't feel victorious. She felt empty. Not sad, not angry, just hollow. She'd spent a year of her life fighting this, a year clawing her way back from nothing. And now that it was finally happening, now that they were finally being held accountable, she didn't know what came next. Who was she, if not the woman fighting for justice? Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You destroyed my family. Courtney." Maya stared at it, then typed back, "No, they destroyed themselves." She blocked the number and went to bed, because tomorrow the trial prep would begin, and she wasn't done yet. What would you do the day your abusers finally faced consequences?
The trial started on a gray Monday in October. United States versus Margaret Richardson and Evan Richardson. The courtroom was old, wood-paneled, intimidating, designed to make people feel the weight of justice. Maya sat in the gallery, hands folded, heart pounding. Janelle squeezed her arm. "You've got this." ADA Lena Park stood to deliver her opening statement. She was calm, controlled, lethal. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about trust, about family, and about what happens when people exploit both for personal gain." She walked toward the jury box. Maya Richardson was 27 years old when she married Daniel Richardson. She brought love, hope, and a substantial inheritance from her late parents into that marriage. Within 3 years, all of it was gone. Not because she spent it, not because she lost it, but because it was stolen by the people who claimed to love her. The jury listened, faces unreadable. The defendants, Margaret and Evan Richardson, orchestrated a scheme to strip Maya of her assets. They manipulated her, lied to her, forged documents, created fake business entities, and when she started asking questions, they silenced her by throwing her out of her own home. Lena paused for effect. This isn't a case about a messy divorce. This is a case about fraud, about greed, about people who believed they were above the law. She gestured toward the defense table. "The evidence will show you a pattern. Bank records, forged signatures, shell companies, testimonies from financial experts and witnesses. And by the end of this trial, you will see the truth. These defendants are guilty." She returned to her seat. The room was silent. Then Margaret's lawyer, Charles Winters, stood. Charles was old school, polished, strategic. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client, Margaret Richardson, is not a criminal. She's a mother, a grandmother, a woman who spent her entire life building something for her family." He walked slowly, deliberately. "The prosecution wants you to believe this is a story about fraud, but it's not. It's a story about family conflict, about a daughter-in-law who made decisions she later regretted and is now blaming others for her mistakes." Maya's jaw tightened. Maya signed documents. She participated in financial decisions. She was not coerced. She was not manipulated. She was an adult making adult choices. He paused. And when her marriage fell apart, when she found herself struggling, she looked for someone to blame. And who better than the wealthy in-laws who must have taken advantage of her? He looked at the jury. But that's not what happened. What happened was a young woman made poor financial choices and is now using the legal system to punish people she resents. Charles sat down. Maya felt sick. Janelle leaned over. "Don't react. That's what they want." But God, it was hard. The prosecution's first witness, Roger Kim, the forensic accountant, Lena walked him through every document, every transfer, every shell company. "Mr. Kim, can you explain this transfer here, the one for $150,000? Roger pointed to the screen. This transfer occurred 3 days after Mrs. Maya Richardson signed a document labeled Family Trust Consolidation. However, there was no family trust. The money was transferred directly to an LLC controlled by Evan Richardson.
And Mrs. Richardson, Maya, did she authorize this transfer? No, her signature does not appear on any withdrawal authorization, so the money was taken without her knowledge. Correct. The defense tried to discredit him. Mr. Kim, isn't it possible Maya simply forgot she authorized it? Roger didn't blink. The account required written authorization for any transfer over $10,000. There is no written authorization, so no, it's not possible. The defense had no comeback. Score 1 for the prosecution. The trial continued for days. Witnesses testified, documents were entered into evidence, experts explained financial forensics, and slowly the jury began to see it: the lies, the manipulation, the theft. Margaret sat stone-faced through it all. Evan fidgeted, whispered to his lawyer, looked increasingly panicked. And Maya? Maya watched, silent, strong, waiting. Would you be able to sit through your abuser's trial without breaking?
On day 7, Lena called Maya to the stand. The courtroom went still. Maya stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked to the witness box. She was sworn in, sat down, looked out at the faces staring back at her. Margaret, Evan, the jury, the reporters. For a moment, she felt like she couldn't breathe. Then Janelle caught her eye from the gallery. "You've got this." Maya exhaled and began. Lena started gently. "Miss Richardson, can you tell the jury about your marriage to Daniel Richardson? We got married when I was 27. I thought it was going to be forever. And your relationship with his family? At first, it seemed fine. Margaret was involved, but I thought that was normal. Evan and his wife were friendly. I wanted to fit in. When did things change?" Maya's voice wavered. "After I lost my baby." The room went quiet. "Can you tell us about that?" "I was 11 weeks pregnant. We went to a routine checkup, and there was no heartbeat." She paused. "I was devastated. Daniel seemed distant. And Margaret, what did Margaret do?" "She blamed me. She said maybe I wasn't meant to carry a child, that my lifestyle, my stress, my age, she made it sound like it was my fault." Lena let that sit. "After the miscarriage, did the family's treatment of you change?" "Yes, they started making decisions for me, about money, about the house. Margaret told me it was for the family, that I needed to trust her." "And did you?" "I wanted to. I wanted to believe they cared about me." "Can you tell the jury about the inheritance transfer?" Maya took a breath. "Margaret told me I needed to consolidate my inheritance for tax purposes. She said it was urgent, that if I didn't act immediately, we'd lose money. I didn't fully understand, but Daniel agreed, so I signed." "Did you know the money would go into an LLC controlled by Evan?" "No, I thought it was going into a family trust." "And when did you learn otherwise?" "Months later. When I asked about the account, Margaret said I must have misunderstood, that I'd signed knowing what it was." "But that wasn't true?" "No." Lena nodded. "Let's talk about the house." Maya explained the refinance, the quiet removal of her name, the discovery months later. "When I confronted Daniel, he told me I was being paranoid, that I was still emotional from the miscarriage." "How did that make you feel?" "Like I was going crazy, like maybe I was imagining things." "But you weren't imagining things, were you?" "No. They stole from me, and then they made me feel like I was the problem for noticing." The jury was riveted. Then the defense's turn. Charles Winters stood, polite but cold. "Miss Richardson, you signed a lot of documents, didn't you?" "Yes." "And you read them before signing?" Maya hesitated. "Some of them, others I was rushed, but you signed them willingly. No one held a gun to your head." "No, but..." "No buts. You signed, correct?" "Yes." "And when your marriage ended, you were upset." "Of course." "Angry?" "Yes." "Angry enough that you wanted revenge." Maya's eyes flashed. "I wanted justice." "Isn't justice just revenge with a legal stamp?" Lena shot up. "Objection. Argumentative." Sustained. Charles smiled. No further questions. But the damage was done.
He'd planted doubt, revenge, anger, a bitter ex. Maya stepped down, heart pounding. Janelle met her outside the courtroom. "You did great." "He made me sound vindictive." "He tried, but the jury saw you, they heard you, and they know the truth." Maya hoped she was right. Would you have kept your composure?
Closing arguments came 2 days later. Lena was fierce. This isn't about a bitter ex-wife. This is about criminals who thought they'd never be caught. The evidence is overwhelming. The testimonies are clear. Margaret and Evan Richardson defrauded Maya Richardson, and they did it knowingly, willfully, and without remorse. She looked each juror in the eye. Don't let them get away with it. Charles argued emotion over facts, misunderstandings over malice. But the jury had seen the bank records, heard the forensic accountant, listened to Maya's testimony. They deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the courtroom was packed. Maya sat between Janelle and Lena, hands clenched. The judge entered. As the jury reached a verdict, "We have, Your Honor." Maya's heart stopped. On the charge of fraud in the first degree, how do you find the defendant, Margaret Richardson? Guilty. A ripple through the room. On the charge of conspiracy? Guilty. Margaret's face went pale. One by one, every charge. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Then Evan. Guilty, guilty, guilty. When the last verdict was read, Maya exhaled. Tears streamed down her face, not from sadness, from relief. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. Margaret, 6 years in federal prison, full restitution to Maya, seizure of assets. Evan, 5, same conditions. Margaret stood before the judge, silent. For the first time, she looked defeated. "Do you have anything to say?" the judge asked. She looked at Maya and said nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. "Maya, how do you feel?" Maya paused. "I feel free." "What's next for you?" She smiled. "My life." "How would you rebuild after everything?" 3 months later, Maya stood in a new apartment. Bigger this time. Bright. Hers. She'd used the restitution money to start over, enrolled in a graduate program, started a blog helping other victims of financial abuse. She wasn't the same woman who'd stood in the rain with 2 suitcases. She was stronger, sharper, free. One afternoon, her phone buzzed. Daniel. She almost didn't answer, but she did. "Maya, I wanted to say I'm proud of you." She didn't respond. "I know that doesn't mean anything, but you deserved better, and I'm sorry I didn't give it to you. Goodbye, Daniel." She hung up. And this time, she didn't cry. She smiled. Maya's story isn't just about revenge. It's about survival, resilience, refusing to stay silent when the world wants you to disappear. Some women scream, some women fight, but some women collect receipts, and when they finally speak, the whole world listens. If you've made it this far, drop a comment. What would you have done in Maya's place? Fight or walk away? And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button, because there are so many more stories of people who refuse to stay silent. Stories that will shock you, inspire you, and remind you that justice isn't just possible, it's inevitable. See you in the next one.